everyone. And I think a round of applause to all of you here who have made it, who stayed the course. Thank you so much. Before I hand over to Gerrit, I just wanted to share a little bit of something that's been playing on my mind since this morning. Gerrit mentioned a little anecdote about the three birds sitting on the line, and the one decides or two decide to fly away, and then he asks how many are left, and all three are still there because they were just planning. They hadn't gone, right? That was the trick there. But it triggered this notion of and I'm going to draw on furry friends again. There's a poem written in the 12th century called The Conference of Birds by Farid al-Attar. And it fits in now with our decolonial theme too, drawing on indigenous knowledge. But anyway, it's a really beautiful poem because he talks about these 12, these birds being summoned to go on this journey and to find the king. But in order to find the king, they need to go through 7 valleys. And in each of the valleys, they need to abandon something that's dear. And the first valley is the valley of the quest, the search, and that would mean that they would need to abandon um, hard-held beliefs, dogmas, or so, and then they move on to the next valley, which is love. The third valley being unity, or and anyways, it continues until they find the last valley, which is the valley of annihilation of the self, right? And in there, they then would find, and after that valley, they would find the king. And as the birds mull about this, some of them kind of, this is too much to take on, they distress, but some stay the course. And 30 birds continue on this journey. And I thought about that and I thought, sure, that just fits in so well with this conference, right? Because I'm not sure whether we find those 7 valleys within the 3 days, because there's been so many journeys that we've been on since the first day and the third day. But what I do know is that last journey, which means the annihilation of self, which really talks to stripping away of the goals to find the intrinsic value of learning and teaching in order to really truly find the purpose of higher ed for good, for which which I think, surface in most of the presentations, if not all the presentations that I listened to today. So it's a journey of transformation, which I do hope that you all come on board. And then the last thing, the king, the simog. Simog is a term for 30. So what the birds eventually find out that the king was really in themselves all along. And I thought that is so fitting because I see that within each of us here. And that collective wisdom, if we can bring it together, whether it's through the Padlet and whether we then start looking at forums, as Rita said, taking up these conversations further up, we have to do that. We have to work on all the collective sharings that we've had these 3 days. With that, colleagues, I hand over to dear Gerrit to close for us today. And I just thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this 3-day journey. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying. um, uh, Perhaps I should, just say a little bit more about the power of decision making. So I know this morning I said, I told the story about the 3 birds, but I can tell you another story from a colleague when I used to teach at Wits Technikon. She told me the story about it's a thing that she saw happening in her classrooms often is that she would have a student and the student would be just not coping well, not performing well academically, and then one day, just out of the blue, something would happen and the student's kind of academic performance would just go to kind of top of the class kind of thing. And she got into the habit of asking them, so what happened? And when she tells the story, she says the answer to that question always starts with 2 words: I decided. So I want to say that there's power in making a decision. There truly is power, but we get busy, and other things crop up, and we get stuck with having made a decision and not implementing that decision. So decisions are really important. But you've got to take the decision further than just making it. I was kind of happy to attend the last two sessions of this conference. I think a lot of people left early, lost out. Your presentation about language earlier on. When I looked at I said it this morning as well. When I looked at the abstracts last night, I thought, these are the two I wanted to see, that I came here for. So I think it's so important that we start getting into that mindset where we see there's a problem and we start investigating that problem with a mind, with a view to finding solutions. Again, this morning I said we have this thing where we can identify issues and we can problematize and we can dissect and we can publish and we can. And if I ask anyone in this room, so what are the reasons why our students aren't succeeding academically? I'm pretty sure we're going to get great answers to that. And the problem with the shortcoming of that is that it stays with explaining the phenomena. We understand why our students don't do well. We can generate a whole list of reasons for that, but they keep on not succeeding academically because we keep on not doing anything about it. We keep on explaining and understanding, but we don't get to that point where we take this understanding, when we go and read what other people have done in similar situations, to resolve issues, to adapt it to local context, and to actually start making a difference. If you heard me speaking over the last year or two, there's a thing that's been bothering me for a long time. I studied down the road at RU at the time, 1981, and before I knew about informed consent, because otherwise I wouldn't have participated. But they sat us all down, all of the first years in that year, and they sat us down to a battery of tests, and they did, survey upon survey, questionnaire upon questionnaire, to try and understand this thing about how come our throughput rate is only 30% and we can't get it up, can't get beyond that. That was in 1981, I said, right? How long is that ago? 44 years? Is that it? Yeah. Guess what's our throughput rate today at WITS? 35. So in all of these years, with all of what we've learned, with all what has happened in the world around us, the technology, the research, we're not getting beyond that. You know why? Because we're still doing the wrong things. We're still not doing what we should be doing. Belinda was talking earlier about one of the things, just off the top of my head, one of the things that we're doing is we're thinking that our students in some way deficient. They don't have the ability to cope. And so we say our students can't learn unless we teach them. And the reason why we think that is they rock up at university and then they spend time in our classrooms and they do an assessment at the end of the year and they pass. And we say, okay, so this is the mechanism. They come to class, we teach them, and because we taught them, they did well. But think about your own experience for a minute. Is that really how that happened? For me, I studied accounting. So I was just too slow. I couldn't keep up with our lectures. So what I did in class is I made notes. And we had nice course notes. And I would go back home, go back to res in the afternoon, and I would figure stuff out. And I would do really well. You know why? Not because I was taught, but because I had the supportive mechanisms, the resources around me to be able to figure stuff out for myself. So let me get on my little soapbox for a while. Your students need a well-designed course site on Ulwazi, where if you're not in class, they can go to Ulwazi and the course developed there is well enough developed for them to get along without you. To create a dependency on you is not a good way to go. If your students can't learn when you're not present, you're tying them to you, you're not liberating them. So we need to start figuring out what these things are that our students need to have around them for them to be able to learn independently. We had it in our previous strategic plan, the 2022, 24, I kind of vision 2022, I think, that we want our students to be self-directed learners. They can't be self-directed learners if you don't create an environment for them within which they can self-direct. So something that happens with our students, if you tell them, tomorrow we're going to deal with this aspect of our curriculum, go home and prepare for it, because tomorrow we're just going to discuss the difficult aspects of the curriculum. And then they go home and they've got a textbook and they don't know what to do. What are we supposed to do to prepare for tomorrow's lecture? Do we just have to read through the textbook? Do we have to do an exercise, or do we have to prepare for the test? So we say go and self-direct, but we don't tell them exactly how to do that. So they come from an environment at school where they get told what to do for tomorrow very, very, very explicitly. And so they cope well at school because, step by step, somebody guides them. Generalization, I understand that. But then they get to university, and a lot of that support that you had at school, you had structured, they call them lesson plans at school. So a teacher came into class and she started at the place and she ended at the place. There was a moment of reflection in class, some classwork, and yes, some homework, and that's another question. But so the learning experience was very structured, and students knew exactly what to do. But so now they come to university and there's a lecture, and after the lecture, there's not really much for them, in way of planning their notional hours. So they learn in the class and then they go away, and then support drops away. And so when we think about the distribution of notional hours in a learning program, it's only a portion of those notional hours that happens in the classroom where the learning experience is guided by a teacher. But beyond that, there's no guidance. And so the technology that we have available, and sorry, I just, I'm, in some cases, I sound like, everything needs to be solved by technology, and that's not where I'm going with this. But there's a place for technology and for assistive technologies and for AI and for learning management systems, if you want to use that term, in the full learning experience of students. So if there's 120 notional hours in a year, it's 1,200 hours of learning. That means 30 weeks at 8 hours a day. If you ever wondered how they get to that number, 30 weeks, 8 hours a day gives you 1,200. Now think for yourself, how much of that time do they spend in the classroom? And how much notional hours are outside of the classroom, and how do we support that learning outside of the classroom? So that's one of the things that we can do. It's low-hanging fruit. Having course guides, having the LMS act instead of the academic when the students are not in the classroom. Maybe I shouldn't ask, but think for yourself: is your course structured like that? Do your students know what they need to do to prepare for tomorrow's lecture? Is your course aligned to the qualification that's registered at SAQA? Or did somebody do a curriculum in 2011 True story. And all you're doing now is you prescribe a textbook and you're teaching through the textbook. And that textbook has got nothing to do with the qualification as it was registered with SAQA. Because we've never actually kind of dug in the archives to try and get that submission to CHE, to see how do we align our course structure to what we said we're going to do for our students. So we pick up a textbook and we teach through a textbook. I think there's a lot of things that as academics we can do to improve our students' learning experience and to aid their success, their academic success at university. And so a long story to get to this point is that the one thing I hope that we do going forward is that we get beyond this point of attending the conference and problematizing and explaining and resolving, and actually going back and finding the time somewhere between everything that is expected of the academic at university today, somewhere in the middle of that, finding the time to develop course materials that allow students to help themselves succeed at university, because they can. I know they can. They're not. I think the thing that bothers me the most about higher education since I can remember is this deficit model, that we believe our students can't cope without us. They can. We get, at WITS especially, Prof. Grayson used to say that so often, it's something that bothered her, is that we get the best of students coming to WITS University. And of those students, we have a 35% throughput rate. We're doing something wrong, and it's affecting lives. We hear about students who don't have places to stay, and they don't have money to pay their fees. They come to us and they say, give us an out, give our communities an out, because I don't have to say this, but so community sends a person to university. It's not like in my case, my mom and dad would pay for, well, not really. We had some financial difficulties, but it was such a lot easier. We kind of made a plan amongst ourselves. It's not a community sending a child, moms working in kitchens to find money to put their kids through school, and they come here and we don't give them all that we have to help them succeed and to help them go back to their communities, and funding the next generation that's got to come to university. University teaching is not about us. I don't become a university teacher because of me. I become a university teacher because of our students, because of their futures. And so going forward, I maybe in another 10 years, not me, I'm not going to be here, I'm going to be long gone. But maybe in 10 years or 15 years, we look back to 2015 and we have this conversation again, and we have a student panel with the SRC speaking to us. And I know she didn't capture everything that is being done at the institution. But I so hope that when she sits here and she speaks to us and we compare to 2015, we see the amazing work that we have done at university to improve situations for the marginalized. You see the many of our students come from affluent homes, and they're going to be okay. One of the studies that I've read says if you count the number of books in a household, then the correlation with academic performance starts with about 30 books in a household. If you have 30 books or more, it starts having a correlation with improved academic performance, up to about 80 books. And then the correlation kind of there's no further increase. You know, if you've got 120 books, it doesn't make you improve even more. So there's between 30 books and 80 books. You have a correlation with academic performance. And then there's another study that they did under 16-year-olds. And something like, I think it was 65%. I've been trying to get the study again to get the exact percentage, but it was something like 65%. Of those 60% that was polled, did not have a single book in their homes. Not one. And so if you have 80 books or more, is kind of the point I want to make, you're going to be okay. Our efforts should be yeah. So if we have limited resources and we're going to spend our time and our effort, let's spend lots and lots of our time and effort with those of our students who come from environments where they don't have the resources, where they don't have the same kind of exposure before they come to university. So we've got to think differently about the way in which we design learning experiences. We think that our learning experience is all about the discipline in which we teach. But for many, it's not. For many, it's, I can't even get to the discipline because I don't understand the language. I can't get to the basics of this discipline because my previous frame of reference just, we teach here, but my frame of reference is here. So the way in which we teach can't be the same as it was in 1980. We don't have a uniform demographic. We've got different students, and everyone learns is at different stages of the learning process. So now you've got 300 students, and you're going to try and get all 300 students through some kind of an assessment. How do you do that? Because they're all at different places. So again, you know, my mind wanders towards artificial intelligence and technology and how we can use that to individualize learning experiences, to meet every single student where they are, and to kind of scaffold them through the learning experience. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do. And so when I talk about compliance, it's often about there's these basic things that should be in place for every single learning experience. You can have so much more than that, but you should at least have these things in place. And so, you know, when I go away from here, I'm going to start fighting that battle again to say there has to, it's in our learning and teaching plan, actually. It's not even my fight. It's been in the learning and teaching plan for a while. Every course has to have an Uwazi course site, which is well developed that scaffolds learning when students are away from course sites. I could show you the statistics of the number of course sites that have not even been published. There's nothing. And I can show you the correlation between course sites not being published and academics saying that online learning doesn't work. I've seen that as well. So I'm encouraged by some of what I've seen today. I see lots of good work being done, and we should not miss that. We should not miss that there are academics here who's just doing everything that they can, doing such good work, identifying challenges and trying to find solutions for that. But I'm hoping that if you are one of those academics, that you'll kind of pick up somebody along the way and say, let's come and do this with me. You know, see how we can improve one module's learning experience, and maybe those students will demand a better learning experience for the other modules as well. I'm really hoping that we can find a way that our ultimate purpose, everything that we do at CLTD, we don't have a direct engagement with students. Our engagement is like indirectly, but we've got learning opportunities for our academics. And I'm hoping that as CLTD, we can create learning opportunities where academics come to us to learn about how to engage their students, um, how it's not how they can use this time that students are in seats before them, not just to fill the seats, but to engage cognitively with content, because that is where the learning happens. There's an absolute 100% correlation between all learning that happens is cognitive engagement with content. No learning happens without that. So if you're having students in the classroom and they're not cognitively engaging, then they're not learning. But you need to structure that learning experience. Now, if you walk into the classroom and you start talking, it's just science that tells me that learning is not going to happen because your mind can't cope with that large amount of information at the same time. So yeah, I'm saying a lot of words about let's try harder. Let's not be back here in 10, 15 years and still have a 35% throughput rate for our students. Still have an economy where there's no entrepreneurship, there's no new businesses developing, because we've been talking about entrepreneurship as part of our syllabi for years and years and years, but it's not happening. We don't send students into the world where if they don't get formally employed, that they can go and create their own little micro businesses. We're just not doing that, and so the economy doesn't grow as a consequence. What's the nice words? I'll be remiss if I don't name some names. This conference didn't just happen, and we didn't start planning for it last week. So the conference has kind of been a while in coming, and the planning started early, and the center as well, everybody in the center played their little bit, especially these last 3 days, people facilitating sessions and watching the chats and so on. So to the team, I want to say thank you so much that you were there throughout these 3 days, and that you did your bit to make the conference work. Some of us even managed to fit in some sessions of their own in between all of that. And the big thank yous I want to say is for Candice and Jackie for their support, but especially Fatima. I wanted to leave you for last. I think this year was the furthest away that I was from the organization of this conference. I've got been closely involved in the organization of the conference for a while, and I've been hoping for such a long time that somebody would just kind of take this over from me. And so Fatima, so to such a large extent, that's what's happened this year. So we're still around, and we still help making decisions and so on. And I signed off on documents, but you've done so much of the planning and so much of the running around and putting things in place. And okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And then finally, to all of you who stayed until now, and everybody who was part of this conference, thank you so much for attending and for presenting and for sharing thoughts. And we're hoping that something's settled and that you take something away from this conference into an improved student learning experience for our students. If we get that done, then it would have been a good conference. Thank you so much.